What's up? This is Brandon London, and you're listening to the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. You hear that? The Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Let's go, Giants.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, it's okay to talk. We're going to be doing plenty of that tonight, put it that way. This time around, we are 100% British, and even after Sunday's shit show, absolutely still 100% Giants. Now, this is a warning. There may be some spicy language following the weekend's abhorrent performance. However, we will not apologise in the slightest, as it is absolutely necessary as we talk about that game. Kev's busy working, so it's myself, Shane, and producer Craig back with you all, fresh off attending the full 10 yards kickoff party in Birmingham, which was an absolute delight. It was a great way to kick off the Sunday evening. Just a shame the evening ended so badly, eh? And yes, believe it or not, we're here to look back on Sunday Night Football. Yeah, because that's what we do. As the Dallas Cowboys came to town to kick off the regular season under the prime time lights, and like I said, what an absolute shit show that was. That's how we're doing. And how was the kickoff party for you as well, by the way?
Yeah, I've been all right. I mean, it's face facts. Sunday could have gone better. Could have got a bit better, but we'll get into it. But yeah, it was good doing the full 10 yards kickoff party. Obviously, it was great to meet up with the two of you again as well. And it was just nice. The Felson's place. It's a nice place. I've been there before. Pool tables, and it's a decent sized venue. I felt like I was just literally watching about 8 different screens in between breaks, and it was good. We'll dissect what happened Sunday, and then hopefully it'll be obliterated from my memory.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. I don't want to do this. Jeff put a thing up earlier, El Jefe, Jeff Pilgrim, where he was like, put your hand up if the team has affected your mood for the entire week so far. And it is, isn't it? Like, we're all just here, just like moping around, like, we've just had our hearts broken, and technically, I guess we have in a way. It's difficult, isn't it? I think Sunday night was the first time that I realised, because of what we do, we're kind of obligated to watch the game, and it doesn't matter how bad it gets. We're not allowed to not do it, because we have to relay it in the format we're doing now. I think Sunday was the first time I was like, God, I wish I don't do this.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that when it got to 40-0, we walked out of the casino. I mean, I still haven't watched the final 9 minutes or whatever it was, and I won't. I only found out this afternoon that Tyrod Taylor actually threw 2 passes in the game as well. Didn't know that, but it's just been an absolute destroyer of a mood over the last day and a bit. The journey home from Birmingham yesterday was
somber.
I mean, somber. Somber is the right word, isn't it? It was very quiet. It was very depressing. The company was good, don't get me wrong, but the journey home itself was very depressing. And yeah, it was great to catch up with you in person again, Shane. I think it's only the third time.
Third, yeah.
Yeah, we actually got together. So yeah, it's good to catch up and see you in person. I actually just had to sit there and chat football with you all night. So yeah, it was a good night, but just a shame it ended so badly. And we stayed up till 4 a.m. to watch that absolute dog shit performance. So yeah, so for those that don't understand, staying up till 4 a.m. on a Sunday night / Monday morning to watch that god awful performance, yeah, it was tough. It was tough. Fane, what were you going to say, mate?
I say the best that it was. I was talking to a couple of people I know last week, and they were like, "You at the Albion this weekend?" I was like, "Nah, international break." They were like, "Oh, the Albion call ruin your weekend, then can they?" I went, "No," I says, "but my fucking NFL team probably will." And you two, being Man U fans, especially after last week with Arsenal and being a Reading fan, will understand that just as much as anybody else will. And it was just typical. I thought, actually, now got a bit of optimism going into Sunday night, and it literally was just quashed instantly. I was just like, I just thought, roll on, mate. Like, no football, no American football. Like, already just get it out of the way.
Do you think
But
it
then
was
we got
kind
the
of?
Euros to look forward to.
Do you think it was kind of preempted by the fact that we tried to get into the casino and they were like, "Yeah, you can't wear jerseys in here," and we were just like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then there's me taking off my jersey to reveal the Big Blue UK and Ireland T-shirt, which is still technically sports related and looked really not that different. And they were like, "Yeah, go on then."
Yeah, it still looks
I mean,
brand on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I went back to the hotel and changed into mine, and they let me straight in. It's brilliant.
Yeah, we've got a
Okay,
T-shirt joint plastered across the bottom. So even Steen, I was like, I don't know why. People say, "Do you enjoy following your sports teams?" I'm like, no. And they're like, why'd you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I literally don't know why I do it.
I mean, it can be enjoyable sometimes when it goes right, but
Rarely.
I can say, unfortunately, being a West Brom fan, that rarely happens. Being a Reading fan rarely happens. Being a Leeds fan rarely happens. And over the last 10 years, being a United fan, it rarely happens. So, yeah, I don't know why we do it. We do it for the love of the game, right?
But we'll be back again next week.
Yeah. Absolutely, we fucking will be back next weekend. Don't forget, the usasports.co.uk have hooked us up with a sweet discount code for you to get all your American sports merch. Just enter the code Big Blue to get a tasty, it's been increased as well, to get a tasty 20% off your entire order. Check out the site usasports.co.uk and go and grab some merch from there. Also, check out our Etsy store. You can get yourself some podcast merch from there as well. Etsy.com/Big Blue UKRL, something like that, Craig, isn't it?
Yeah. You have nailed it.
Check us out, buy some merch from us, and support the cause. All right, so without further ado, I suppose we should really talk about Sunday, shouldn't we? Put Pep in charge. Evening, Darren. It's a good idea. I mean, you need to win trophies, so it could be worse. You might not have a clue about the sport, but it could be worse. Yeah, we better talk about Sunday, I suppose, don't we? The stage was set. Sunday night football. Dak and his Dallas Cowboys in town, kicking off the season in style under the primetime lights, and it just couldn't have gone any worse. I mean, the game was lost essentially from probably 3 minutes into the first quarter. Yeah, about that, something like that, wasn't it? Which was obviously a lot earlier than we could have ever imagined. We were doing quite well in the first drive, steadily picking up yards. But then we get that false start by the normally reliable all-pro left tackle Andrew Thomas that was just sort of, I know the play clock was on. I think it was running. The play clock was running down to like 1 or 2 seconds, and he just jumped a little bit early. But it was very unusual, and that was at the 8-yard line. And then the following snap, John Michael Schmidt's bad snap in bad weather, led to a fumble, which was recovered luckily by Dan Jones. And then the trifecta of pain, as we've called it, was sealed as Graham Gano's 45-yard field goal attempt was blocked and returned to the house for 58 yards and a touchdown that we really never recovered from. I think just the sheer knock-on confidence and everything over the course of those sort of 3 plays, it just ruined the game for us. And for whatever reason, they just could not seem to pick their heads up and take their heads out of their asses and actually, you know what, let's just get out there and play. It's one drive at a time, one play at a time. But for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. And, all night you could just see heads were down. And whether it was the rain, whether it was sitting out there in a fucking torrential rainstorm, I don't know. But they could just not get themselves going. They couldn't get themselves motivated. And by the end of the first quarter, we were down 16-0. Dallas had a 21-yard field goal. And then to compound the misery even more, a 22-yard pick six of a pass intended for your boy Saquon Barkley. And we just sat there and looked on. I mean, I don't think we knew whether to laugh, to cry, whether to throw like our drinks across the room, whether to walk out. I don't know. We just sort of almost just looked at each other in complete and utter disbelief. And the two girls that were sat there just sort of looked at us as if to say, oh dear, this isn't going well. And then the other guys that were sat across from us just sort of, again, just looked at us and were like, awkward. This isn't going particularly well. So all in all, bad fucking tastic. Shane, was there actually anything good to come from the game?
I take it you mean other than the full-time whistle?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to find any kind of positives, but, we try and find some silver linings somewhere. And to be fair, like you've mentioned, that first drive up until that false start, we were moving the ball well. There was optimism there. We're moving the ball down the field and we're getting the yards we needed, got into field goal range. It was like, yeah, okay, we're moving it nicely here, doing what we need to do. Rushed on every play, picking up 52 yards out of the 110 that we had. But, the offensive line was sort of showing a few cracks here and there already, but I'm sure none of us envisioned it going the way that it did. In regards to defensively, I mean, Xavier McKinney, he had a few missed tackles, yes, but he was solid in coverage, finishing with 2 passes defended. And I'll probably say the standout of the game to me was Jordan Riley. He had a high PFF grade and a really nice tackle for loss. And when he made that tackle for loss, both me and Craig looked at each other and were like, yeah, fair play to him. That's what you want to see. I mean, you could also mention that the rookie cornerbacks dealt well with the pressure on the allowing 1 reception on 3 targets between them. It's unfortunate that Tay Banks only got to play 25 snaps before leaving the game, and then obviously you had the questionable PI call on Hawkins, but he's a rookie in his NFL debut, so you're giving the benefit of the doubt. And then obviously Michael McFadden was around the field quite a lot. He was one of only 2 players. The other was Trey Hawkins, who showed a bit of fire and pop behind his tackles. He had 11 tackles, Michael McFadden, and 4 of them solo, and 1 of them a tackle for loss. Which when we've had them question marks over that LB2 next to Bobby Okereke, and obviously Beavers ended up getting cut, and we've signed Isaiah Simmons, and it seems like he might be playing a little bit of everywhere. It is good that we've got McFadden, who needs to show something. We need to have we've got that kind of depth at linebacker behind Okereke if anything was to happen to him. So obviously I know we do usually do players of the game. Do we all agree there isn't anyone deserving of that title this week, Dan?
Yes. Nobody's deserving of that title this week. Like you said, there were a few players that had showed glimpses of a good performance. Michael McFadden, 11 total tackles, and he had that big stop on the Dallas punt return as well. He had Tay Banks and Trey Hawkins, who, allowed 1 catch between them. Tay Banks didn't allow a single catch on 2 targets. I thought he had a pretty good game in coverage. By the DBs was actually pretty good. Under a 50% completion rate. So, the defense wasn't all bad. And that call on the DPI call on Trey Hawkins was that's never defensive pass interference. I'm sorry. So the call was very, very harsh. But overall, nobody deserves a Player of the Game award because we got absolutely destroyed and dumped on and just pissed around by a team that looked a million times better than we did and actually looked like they had some sort of fire and consistency in their bellies, which didn't come across in any of our players whatsoever. So, no, nobody's getting a Player of the Week award from me this week.
It's amazing as well, isn't it, that there's so many consistent standouts from last season who none of them performed. Even someone like, we're getting to the negatives I don't think this is something we've mentioned in there, but someone like Graham Gano, who's normally the automatic man, obviously he was dealing with an injury that came out afterwards, but even he missed essentially a chip shot field goal and wasn't even close. Like nobody stepped up. You look at the players who actually, arguably did something. As Shane's just gone through them there, three rookies, and they're the people who are brand new to the pro game, didn't let their heads go down, kind of tried to do as best as they can. Michael McFadden, sophomore player, bit part player last year, more towards the back end of the season. Yeah, he was the only one who, as Shane rightly said, popped behind his tackles. It actually looked like he was trying, but how can you name players of the game when you put up a donut at home on the opener? I mean, Shane, player of the game. Did you have a player of the game?
No, if you really want to push, we'll come on to it shortly. But say, Josh Azudu graded out quite well when he come in at left tackle, but he had the blown coverage on the field goal, so that negates that. You could say, no, I'm kind of reaching here, but Saquon, he looked quite good when he was running the ball, but then he got blasted for the catch that ended up being an interception. So it's kind of like anybody who you maybe could have, you could also tie something negative that kind of happened to him. And obviously, I don't think they do man of the match in NFL games. I've never heard them announce it anyway on commentary or anything, but I genuinely would be interested to know if they didn't man of the match like they do weekly in football over here in England. I genuinely do want to know who they would have given it to.
Yeah, I think obviously they give out game balls in the locker room and stuff like that, but
I can't imagine we had any.
God no.
Maybe Casey snapped the ball well on the field goal.
Yep, true that. Yeah, you knew the night wasn't going well when Gano shanked that 36-yarder wide left, and it wasn't as a close one either. It was a good 3-4 yards wide, and it just you thought, get some points on the board, cool, and then he shanks it, and you just laugh
for that. And I went to the top for that. I come back, you two like. It gets worse. He's missed his field goal, and I was like, "Nah, you're having me on." I was like, "It's Gano doesn't miss. That's going to be the one bright point tonight. No matter what, if we get a field goal, at least Gano's going to put some points on the board for us." And even that didn't happen. And like Dan mentioned earlier, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was laughing at it. In all honesty, because it was just like it was like that old meme of just when things can't get any worse, the New York Giants football team went, "Hold my beer." And then it'd be rinse and repeat. You thought it couldn't get any worse, something else. Okay, it ain't going to get any worse than that, something else. And you're like, for God's sake, is this ever going to end? And it was just a case of, you just got to laugh at it at the end of the day because, I don't know if we're going to cover it at any point, but there's that thing the Athletic put out. Was it earlier today or yesterday about no team's done this?
Yeah, we got it later.
And we did it in one
coming.
So how can you not laugh? Well, you just had to laugh at it all, in my opinion. Yeah, we got frustrated, but it just got to a point where it's just like, oh, you know what? I know we're not going to win. I just had to laugh personally.
If you mentioned Casey as well, he was the highest rated special teams player according to PFF because he made a tackle. How bad is it that PFF grade long snappers on tackles and he ends up making one and all of a sudden he's the best special teams player?
Casey.
Well, there you go. There's our unofficial player of the game, Casey Crichton.
Casey Crichton.
Casey Crichton. The long snapper. Get in. But it's like the best pass blocking grade went to Saquon at 83. It's like, come on.
It just says all you need to know.
Yeah.
So. Especially when you look at the issue, Saquon's always been told, he's a bad pass blocker. He's our highest graded pass blocker the weekend. So what does that say?
It says he's not actually that bad. And believe it or not, that was actually us talking about the good stuff. Producer Craig has got the absolute joys of talking about bad stuff. So, Craig, where the fucking hell do we start with this?
Well, I just want to caveat that last week Shane said, why do I always get all the bad stuff? Can I not just have the good stuff once? And the one game where I'm like, yeah, I'll give him the good stuff. Fuck you know. Right. I mean, where else can I start? I can't start anywhere else. I have to talk about the offensive line. It didn't look great on the first drive, and it really did capitulate from there. I mean, JMS, yes, he's a rookie, but he struggled in those wet conditions. I don't know if that's something to do with the dead snap as he takes it, and whether that's maybe why it's not done as much in the pros, because weather permitting, it can cause erratic results. But his snapping, there were a few as well. There were a couple of others where Dan Jones had to pick it up off the floor. He also allowed 2 hurries and a QB hit, but you know, as we've always said, center's a horrible position to try and come into the pros with. So, what you what are you going to do? Evan Neal and Glowinski. We were in the car yesterday on the way back from Birmingham, and what was the word we used to describe them, Dan?
Turnstiles.
Turnstiles. And then we said even turnstiles stop you for a second.
Yeah.
So that's everything you need to know.
They were free entry turnstiles. They were just turning all the time, not stopping you coming in.
My full 10 yards article will be out tomorrow morning, in which I've called it an all-you-can-eat buffet for the Dallas Cowboys pass rushers. I think we even mentioned in the car that I might as well throw in something along the lines of they might as well tie the napkins to their necks as well. That's how poor they were. It was a disgraceful showing from that right side. For all the fanfare over Neal's off-season work with the ex-Bengals offensive lineman whose name escapes me right now. I don't think any of it was apparent, as you know, he just showed off poor footwork and sometimes didn't even look like he was really paying attention. I think mentally he was shot, just absolutely shot. He had his worst ever game last season against the Cowboys, and I guess he wanted to try and prove something, and the second he realised he'd been found out, it all just crumbled and he just couldn't take it. I mean, the bigger worry for me, though, is Glowinski. I mean, he was the lone marquee signing last offseason, the one we paid the most amount of money. We had limited money last offseason, and he was no help. I mean, he should be guiding Neal and really supporting him, whereas actually he was even worse. And it was really no surprise when the PFF ratings came out that it was low, but he got a 1.0 grade in pass blocking. A 1.0. That's out of 100. Now, 11 hurries, 2 quarterback hits, and 4 sacks, all from that side of the line. Way over 75% of the total numbers in all 3 of those categories. What are we going to do with this offensive line? I mean, it's getting worse. It's 10 years. We've tried so many different things. It does not get better. At what point do we start pointing the finger at Bobby Johnson and maybe even the coaches and the backroom staff to say, look, if the players aren't good enough, or apparently are good enough because you're drafting and signing them, what are we teaching them, Shane?
Oh boy. Who would have thought we'd be having this conversation, eh? I mean, the O-line was absolutely... let's put it in reality. If I took a snap for the New York Giants on Sunday and I tried to pass, I fancy my chances I'd have put up a higher pass grade than Mark Lewinsky. That is not a good stat to have.
I think we all could have done.
That is not a good stat to have. You know, I mean, it don't matter what I did, I'm sure I could have put up more than a 1. I mean, the O-line's just bad. It's really poor, and I don't get it because it's year after year. It feels like we don't matter what we do. I mean, I've not looked at the stats for the O-line, but off the top of my head, Andrew Thomas is a round 1 pick. Evan Neal's a round 1 pick. I don't know where Glowinski went, but where he was drafted, but he's still got being paid pretty well. John Michael Schmitz is a round 2 pick. I believe was was Bredesen around 3 pick maybe. So these ain't like kind of undrafted free agent picks or guys that have been took on day 3 where you just hitting and hoping. These are guys that have been drafted at a level that says we think you can make it in the NFL. And like at least 4 of them are playing like they've never played the sport in their life. I mean, I don't know if it's going to come up in a minute when we talk about Andrew Thomas a little bit more. But if he plays Sunday, and in all honesty, I'd be tempted not to play him personally because I'd rather just protect that hamstring a little bit longer. But if he plays, the solution to me is you take Glowinski out because Evan Neal, Glowinski's coming to the end of his career. Evan Neal's career is just starting and it might be ending just as quickly because he's not getting on with Glowinski. There's no chemistry there. There's no guidance there. So to me, the solution is get Glowinski out, kick Bredesen over to right guard and give Azudu a shot at left guard. And at least Bredesen can try it. And then you've got Thomas teaching Azudu or guiding Azudu. And then you've got the same with Bredesen and Evan Neal. But something needs to be done because if Evan Neal's not careful, this is a guy we took 7th overall. It's not good enough. It really not. And I don't want to overreact after one game because, you know, it is just one game. There's still like 17 weeks of football left. And it's a case of let's not overreact. But when you throw in the fact of the rookie year Evan Neal had and the supposed improvements he made this offseason, I mean, I was listening to the Talking Giants podcast earlier and like this opened my eyes up massively. So they were saying in training camp this year, Evan Neal looks to have made good improvements. That's against Thibodeau and Ojulari. Then what does that say about them as well, which I'm sure will come onto the defense at some point. But what does that say about them if Evan Neal's looking good against them? It doesn't put them in great light either. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I don't like the idea of sacking an offensive line coach. I'm not saying sack him now. I don't like the idea of sacking an offensive line coach halfway through a season because you've just had the whole off season to try and drill and implement what you want to do. So is it the right decision to do it now? No. But I just don't know I don't know what the solution is. I literally ain't got a clue. But I know what the solution's not. Fucking better not draft O-line next year in the first round. I'm telling you that much. I'm fucking done with the O-line. Done with it. I don't want to see any more high draft picks on O-line.
I mean, benching Glowinski it's a must. It's an absolute must. I mean, he's a 9-year veteran, and for him to be posting a 1.0 pass blocking grade as a 9-year veteran is a fucking joke. It's an absolute joke. Like you said, we spent money on him last off season. That, you know, money was tight last year, and he goes and gives a performance like that in week 1 of Brian Daboll's second season in charge, and you just think, is he just trying to get out of playing because he's going the right way about it? Bench him. I mean, if you're Bobby Johnson, if you're Mike Kafka, if you're Brian Daboll, if you're Joe Shane, you're having that conversation with him and you're saying, you're on the bench this week, you ain't starting. Enjoy warming your ass because get used to sitting there because if you play like that week in, week out, you're gone come the end of the season. Like you said, and I would do exactly as you said, Shane, is to put Azudu in as right guard and move Bredesen over to left. But whatever you said it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you said. But I would do exactly that because you rightly said Evan Neal is in his second year, and if he carries on the way he's going with Glowinski just inside him, how is he going to ever improve when he's got a dog shit human of a player like that on his inside and he can't block for shit? How is Evan Neal ever going to improve? You're meant to be a veteran, meant to be a mentor, a leader, and you go and give a performance like that. Sorry, fuck off. Go. Be late. But Bobby Johnson as well. He's got to take some of this criticism. I've not seen an offensive line performance as bad as that in a long fucking time, and I hope to God I don't see another one as bad as that anytime soon. But it needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed by Daves and by Joe Shane, whether they have a meeting with Johnson, a conversation with him, whatever, whether they bend him over and smack his fucking ass. I don't care at this point in time. It do something, because he's got to take some of the blame for it. He's got to take some of the criticism for it. And you barely see his name mentioned across any social media platform at the moment. Sorry, he's the coach of the offensive line. He deserves some criticism, and he deserves to take some of the flack and some of the blame for it. And I've not seen an interview with him yet, so I'll be interested to find out what he says. But it needs to change, and it needs to change quick. We've got Arizona coming up in 5 days' time on the road, which is a long old road trip. Giants don't travel well out west, so something needs to change, and needs to change quickly, because if it doesn't, we could be looking ahead towards 2024 already. And Shane, I'm surprised you haven't done a mock draft yet, to be fair, mate.
To be fair, it did cross my mind on, I think it was yesterday. I was like, is it too early to start looking at the at the college players? But I've just got PFF up. I just want to. So pass blocking grades for PFF. There's 5 offensive linemen. Our top 5 pass blockers was Saquon Barkley, number 1, Matt Pert, number 2, Zudu 3, Matt Brader 4th, and Lawrence Cager 5. Now, when 5 of your best pass blockers are 2 running backs and a tight end, you've got a problem.
There's a serious problem. Yeah. I mean, Bobby Johnson, sort it out, mate. It's up to you. Put some fire in the bellies of those offensive linemen and get them playing as well as they should. I put Azudu, like you said, apart from the block punt, Azudu had the block field goal. Sorry, Azudu had a fairly good game in there. So get Azudu in. Again, he's a second-year player. He's young. He's probably hungry. So get him in there. And I just want to say, 2K Prince, Daniel Jones is not trash.
So
the rest of the team around him is.
Well, we'll just bring up a few of the comments that are on there. So as we had up a minute ago, Steve said that he mentioned to us on X that we should be looking at working out Dalton Reisner or Justin Pugh, because Klawinski's not up to it.
Get on the phone.
Now, Dalton Reisner, I think, is potentially going to Minnesota. He posted a picture earlier today of one of the airport boards. New York was not on the picture, so that can probably rule that one out. Justin Pugh, I might have had a little back and forth with Alex Wilson of Fireside Giants last night on this, where he was saying that Pugh was he did say that it was an emotional tweet, and that he didn't mean it in seriousness, but he was saying Pugh's basically begging to come back. And we were lucky enough, we've spoken to Justin, we know he's not begging to come back, but you do think to yourself, he said in the interview with us he wasn't going to be ready till week 4-5, but surely if you're going to be able to get him for an amount of money, you bring him in now, just even for coaching, even for to try and gel everything together, mainly for the off the field stuff. And then Steve also made a good point that there's a load of people on X calling for Mike Munchak, the ex-Steelers O-line coach. And I mean, I'm not really familiar with him. I don't really tend to look at other coaches outside of the Giants very often. Are either of you got any opinion on Munchak? Shane?
I don't like offensive linemen in general, let alone. I ain't got a clue. I just know he was an for Penn State, and that's about as much as my knowledge goes.
Dan, heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him. To be fair, I think you've got to give Bobby Johnson a little bit of time. This season anyway. I mean, obviously he had the whole of last year, and our offensive line wasn't horrendous, but it wasn't great. So give him a little bit of time this year, and if it doesn't get any better, then you potentially got to look at changing your offensive line coach mid-season, which isn't great, because we've done it before, and we didn't have particularly great results from that last time either. So yeah, Mike Munchak, I don't know much about him, but just think back to sort of the Steelers teams that he was part of. I think when was he with the Steelers from? Let me just have a look.
I've just looked.
2014 to 2018.
Yeah, but then he was Broncos 19 to 21, and I'm sure the Broncos O-line were exactly brilliant in that period.
No.
But the problem is, obviously, I mean, with Dalton Rising, the problem is we've not got money to make that move.
No.
I think that's the biggest issue. It's not like, we don't want him. We probably would have him if we could, but the fact is we've not got the money to make the move, and the only moves we can probably make is something to do with Leo Williams and Adore. And to me, Joe Shane's made it abundantly clear he doesn't want to do that. No. If he was, he'd have done it long before week 1 of the NFL season.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, obviously, a lot of these comments and these things that you see on Twitter and X and Facebook or whatever it is, it's obviously all a knee-jerk reaction to this weekend. You know, this time last week we weren't talking about replacing offensive line coaches. This time last weekend we weren't talking about Mark Lewinsky being an absolute dog shit of a right guard. This time last week we weren't talking about our offensive line being awful. But you know, it's all a reaction. It's all because of the game that just happened. So a lot of what you see on socials obviously is a reaction. So I think you just got to give Bobby Johnson some time and let him get to work with his linemen that he's got, because you know, booting him after one week of the season isn't going to help anybody. Let alone help the team. You know, it's almost like, you know, after 1 week of the Premier League, you know, your team loses 6-0 at home, and you sack your manager. You wouldn't not one week into the league season, you wouldn't sack your manager. So
I have seen some comments like that, to be fair. Like I've raised a couple of Giants forums, and I've actually genuinely seen people saying, you know, sack the front office. It's like that's a stupid. You got to give him a chance at the end of the day. You know, I think probably what the most annoying part is obviously last week on the predictions, which we won't talk about. Who we all predicted, but last week on the predictions, I said, like, you know, the key is we need to ride that wave of momentum that we've had. Obviously, with making the playoffs, winning a playoff, trading for Darren Waller, what we did in the draft. You know, the momentum was high. I wanted a blowout on Sunday, and you know, confidence seems really high in the New York Giants facility leading up to Sunday night. But then they got on the field, and it was like they were all. I don't know if they were all shot of confidence or embarrassed or what, but it just didn't look like the team that I'd been reading and seeing so much about on socials leading up to Sunday, and that's the bit that's confused me the most. And I don't know what Brian Daboll does today. I mean, on one hand, I think, yeah, you need to dissect what happened, but then on another hand, you just turn around and say, look, it's in the past. Let's just forget about it. It was a fluke. Everything that happened, everything from the false start to the botched field goal to the missed field goal to the interceptions, and you just forget about it, because obviously if you linger on it too long, that can also have a negative effect on the players. So I'd be very curious to know, and we probably never will know, probably not anytime soon anyway, what the reaction was by the coaching staff and then the players when that reported to the facility today.
So just on that point, there's some news that's just come off on Twitter per Michael Kay on the Michael Kay Show, ESPN New York, who said that he has it on good authority that Brian Daboll had a huge party at his house on Saturday night, the night before the game. And Kay said, you know, you're not throwing a big party if you're about to get your ass kicked by the Cowboys. So this is how much it took everybody by surprise, and that's what's scary. Nobody expected the blowout. They thought they were going to show up and play, and the team just didn't even show up. And that's what he's saying it scares him. It almost tells them that they don't even know their own team. There's no way the head coach of a team throws a huge party like that the night before an opener if they think there's a chance they're going to get smashed.
I mean, if that's true, like, I don't give a damn who you am. You don't throw a party the day before a game. That's not acceptable in my opinion. You don't do it. You're on business mode now. You're on game. Or, you know, if I start I'm at work tomorrow. I ain't gonna throw a party tonight. I've got work tomorrow. I know I need to have an early night. I've got to get up for work. Whether you're a footballer or whether you're working in an office or whatever your job is, to me that is not acceptable. And if it is true, I'm really surprised by Brian Daboll, because I thought he was better than that. You know, that's really poor in my opinion. That's really bad.
Yeah, that doesn't sound particularly great, does it? Like Steve rightly says, this shows a huge lack of professionalism. I mean, again, do you believe everything you read on socials? I don't know, but if that's true, then he's got a lot of questions to answer.
And Jamie makes a great
because-
point there.
Yeah, the boat trip should have been a bloody indication as to how bad a sequence, how
Yep.
it can have a bad sequence of events. So,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And if that's true,
Fine.
I do hope beat reporters question him about it. And I don't want to see some bullshit answer about, oh, well, I'm not talking about that. That's all in the past now. I'm looking to Arizona. I don't want to hear a bullshit answer like that because that's not going to be good enough either. And if it was me, if I'm John Marrow, I'd be putting him in and saying, I want an explanation about this. Why are we doing this on the night? Not just a game, but it's a divisional rival. Like, it's Sunday night football. It's probably it's one of the biggest nights of the season. And you're doing that on a Saturday night, and that's disgraceful, in my opinion, if true.
Right. Defense.
Is that the end of the bad?
Yes. No. It's not the end of the bad.
We're just getting started.
That's 1/3 of the bad. We've got defense next, which, again,
Joys.
The Giants were defensively inept in pass rushing. Barely bothering Dak Prescott, who, let's be honest, Dak didn't have a good game. He didn't. He was poor. They were carried by their rushing attack, but there was a lot of time where we afforded Dak ample time to survey the field. But like I said, he was off kilter. Less than 55% completion rate, 0 touchdowns through the air, a couple of overthrows. I think there were a couple of drops by some of their tight end, Ferguson especially. But yeah, the run game continues to be an issue for our defense as we allow 3 scores while also allowing Tony Pollard to average, 5 yards a carry on 14 blitzes. You look at the snap counts, we were able to rotate Dex and Big Cat more than we were last season. We've already spoken about Jordan Riley, Ashawn Robinson, and I believe Nacho both had a larger percentage of snaps than we potentially anticipated that early. Maybe that was a rotation thing, but as we saw on the offense, Dable wasn't pulling starters, so there's obviously another reason there. But Wink is known for creating imaginative blitzes and getting people free to be able to make plays. But it's another game. It's the 3rd game in a row against the Cowboys where we failed to sack their quarterback. And outside of Dexter's 4 pressures, we only managed another 2. I think one of them was by Jihad Ward, and I cannot remember who the other one was. But none of them were starting edge rushers. Is this an execution issue, or does this show just how complete Dallas are maybe on their offensive line? Dan?
I don't know if it's an execution issue. As bad an excuse it sounds, the weather probably didn't have a good, the weather probably didn't help at all. But it's well known and well documented how good the Dallas O-line is. I mean, we spoke about it last week. But to have 3 games in a row against the Cowboys without a single sack, I mean, it's inexcusable, really. We've got these absolute monsters up front who get paid a fucking fortune. And we can barely get any pressure on the quarterback. Tibbs and Ojulari were non-existent. There was no pass rush whatsoever. And I think a lot of that is the Dallas O-line and the protection of Dak Prescott is phenomenal. I mean, you look at how many times he dropped back and he just had a clean pocket. Granted, he completed less than 50% of his passes, but again, the weather probably has something to do with that as well. The ball was ridiculously slippery. The field, obviously, it's the first time a regular season game's been played on that field, and it looks pretty slippery. So maybe that's a reason, part of the reason why Schmitz had his issues with snapping the ball as well. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's execution or not, but we just couldn't seem to get anything going on any side of the ball on Sunday. So maybe it was a and being that deep in a hole so soon after the start of a game, you're not going to be able to help but you have your sort of head start to drop. Especially the defense wasn't on the field much in the first quarter because 2 scores came off of turnovers. So it wasn't as if like the defense was on the field much in the first quarter. But when you're 16-0 down by the end of quarter one, it's going to be very, very difficult to get on the field and actually be motivated to get to the quarterback. Maybe it is a little bit execution, I don't know, but also again, all signs were pointing towards in the preseason and in camp that our defensive front and pass rush is looking like pretty fearsome, and it just yet again against the Cowboys was non-existent. So I don't know, but yeah, 3 games in a row without a sack against Dallas is shocking.
Yeah, the problem is it wasn't even like Dallas's main starting O-line. They had a couple of injuries and we still couldn't do anything. And like I alluded to earlier on, Evan Neal apparently was looking good in camp against Aziz and Thibodeau. Does that speak more about them than it does Evan Neal? And if it does, it doesn't speak about them in a good light. Our best pass rusher was Dexter Lawrence. Dex is great. We all love Dex and we all rave about Dex. But when your nose tackle, who weighs 342 pounds, is your best pass rusher, there's a problem there to me. I just don't know what. I feel like at the minute there's loads of question marks on both sides of the ball, and both of them were. One of them we mentioned. We've got not much depth behind offensive tackle. And if Evan Neal struggles and Andrew Thomas is injured, we're going to say that's true. And then the other one was we've not got much depth at edge. And again, that kind of showed the weekend, because if you're rotating players in and out and we're still not doing anything, then who are you subbing on to get that pressure? Because, like I say, we all love Dex and we all rate Dex, and no one begrudges the contract that he got because we all think that he fully deserved it, and he did. But you can't just rely on Dexter Lawrence. We've seen at times last year with the amount of snaps he played that, the whole idea was bring in Aishawn and Nacho when we can rotate, keep people fresh. But you can't just rely on, Sackler to be generating the pressure constantly whilst also constantly stopping the run at the same time.
Right. Special teams. Let's round it out because I'm sick and tired of talking about this already. We've already spoken. It was a Zudu. Another offensive lineman. We've spoken about how when he was moved to left tackle, when Pert went down, he was actually serviceable. But unfortunately, the turning point was early and it was Azudu's fault. He decided to block neither of his assignments as 2 players rushing for him, block somebody, but he decided not to do either, allowing both Dallas defenders to get a clear path to Gano, who took a cleat to the calf for his troubles, which he's since had to get an X-ray on, and we're awaiting the results for that. I think they're going to come out tomorrow. We've got the video here. If you watch the video, you can see him on the right hand side. He just, does he even try? It's not just me, right? Yes, there's 2 of them. And as Tyne says there, stab with the left, protect inside, go to the outside. He doesn't do either. One, I guess, Shane, what are your thoughts on it? And 2, we've spoken about Bobby Johnson, but from a special teams perspective, Thomas McGaughey's got to be on the hot seat as well.
Yeah, I don't understand what Azudu is doing here, because everyone knows you've got to protect the inside first and foremost. And if you look at his reaction, is he expecting somebody else to pick up the inside guy? Because he doesn't even look at, he puts his arm up to try and do something to the outside guy. He doesn't do anything at all. But you see him at least try and kind of push him. So is there a misunderstanding in regards to assignments there? Because he doesn't even look at the guy on the left. So that either tells me, A, he was expecting somebody else to pick it up, or B, he didn't see him. And I don't know how you can't see him when it's a man that size that's right in front of you. But for me, McGay, he's on the hot seat. Special teams wasn't great at times last year. It was probably the biggest weakness we'd have said last year. And we even in pre-season, special teams didn't look great again. And then you have that happen, and like I say, the Giants are going to know more than we're going to know. Was it, misunderstanding on who was picking who up, or was it just bad play by Azudu, which I kind of find it hard to believe because, like I say, he doesn't even look at the guy that's on his left. And I don't see how you could not even see him. Even in your peripheral vision, you've got to be able to see him rushing at you. So, don't know for a fact, but it leads me to believe that maybe there was a blown assignment somewhere and someone's picked up someone incorrectly, or Azudu's not understood the play.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it does look like Shane said, that he's not even noticed the guy coming on the inside, so he's not even looking at him. So whether that, whoever the guy next to Azudi was on that play as well, it almost looks like he slips. He ends up sort of flat on his face. So, whoever was meant to pick up the rusher didn't, and it was a guy that went through the inside that ended up blocking him. Yeah, if you look at, he's like where the guy's rushing, he's like hurdled over him, but he's almost on the floor as he's hurdling over him.
Is that 58?
So it's definitely
his feet
a Casey 58. Is he 68?
He could be 68. I mean, I don't know who 68 is, but I can
almost
see
looks
what
like
you're
his
saying
feet.
here,
It almost looks like his feet have given out from underneath him there, and so he's just taking advantage of that slip. I don't know, but
I mean, you can clearly see an 8. It's 68, I think. There, Shane. I don't know who's 68.
So 68 is Ben Bredesen.
So Bredeson's cleats have obviously given away slightly in the turf there. We could be onto something there. I mean, it's definitely... He kind of jumps through the gap as well, almost like Bredeson's legs there. So maybe Azudu is expecting Bredesen to block the person in front with the left and block the person
because if you look, there's 3 on the right hand side. There's 3 rushers on the right hand side. You got 1, 2, 3, and you got 3 men there. I think Bredesen slipped and he's jumped through the gap. So I don't. Even still, Azudu's got to do better on the edge. He's got to seal that edge and stop that guy getting past him so easily on the edge as well. But yeah, I think McGahee, he had his problems last year. Special teams weren't great last year. They've not been great through the preseason, and so far this season, I mean, it's been fucking shocking so far in week 1. So he's definitely on the hot seat. I mean, he's the only one left from the Dave Gettleman era and the Joe Judge era. So they obviously saw something about him that they liked, but he's not. I don't know. I think this might be the last season of Thomas McGahee as STC. Put it that way.
Right. I mean, we've done the good, we've done the bad. What's next?
What's it time for?
What the Feagles?
And for What the Feagles. Now, for this week's What the Feagles, there's a plethora of moments that we could have chosen, but we picked 3 that really sort of stand out for us. First off, Brian Dable has been crucified on socials over the last sort of couple of days for leaving Daniel Jones in the game, with him taking plenty of unnecessary hits, with the game the game lost, 40-0 in the 4th quarter, and Dan Jones is still in there. Obviously Dave just said that he wanted the offense to get going, but Craig, do you think he should have taken Jones out when he was, when he had the chance to?
Yeah, I also think that if you're going to abandon the run like we did early, and you're going to put Jones back in there and you want the offense to do something, can we not just call designed runs for Jones? Because he just got smashed again and again. I was listening to the Giant Insider podcast earlier today, and they were kind of saying, Chris was kind of saying, like they're all sat up in the press box, and they're like, why is he still out there? Like, if he gets injured week 1, and we have to go for Taylor for the rest of the season because he gets injured, because we've still got him out on the field in a game that we're not even close to being respectable in, let alone getting the score close or anything like that. I mean, I do think he should be pulled, but on the flip side, I do think there's been an overreaction on some of the blame going towards Dabes. I think Kafka's got just as much blame to take on that, because the play calling needed better throughout that entire game.
Shane, should he be pulled?
Yeah, 100%. You know, we just go back just under 24 hours ago. What happened to Aaron Rodgers? That could easily have been Daniel Jones. The O-line. We've already discussed the O-line was shit Sunday night. Why did you leave him out there? I mean, Dable said they wanted to get something going, but like Craig says, we weren't just like 1 or 2 scores behind. We'd lost. Let's face facts, we had lost at that point. What was the point in leaving him out? And again, I think it's another poor decision by Brian Dable. Just make this clear, I'm not turning against Brian Dable. I'm not saying Brian Dable all of a sudden has turned into a bad coach overnight, irrespective of whether or not he did have a party on Saturday night, and irrespective of whether he decided to pull Daniel Jones or not. It's not us turning against Brian Dable. Just to be clear, we're not saying that he's poor and we should maybe look at moving on. That's not the case, but we're dissecting what we know, and that's all that we can kind of comment on and what we can deal with. And for me, if Daniel Jones had done an Aaron Rodgers last night, I'm not saying Dable would have been on the hot seat, but there'd have been a lot of questions asked as to why you were leaving let's face facts, 160 million a year quarterback in a game that effectively was lost. Now, you might have had the other side of Daniel Jones saying, keep me in. And that's what I would expect from Daniel Jones. He doesn't want to be benched. But at some point, you've got to turn around and say, look, the O-line's bad. We're getting blown up constantly. It's awful conditions. It's wet. It's rainy. The ball's slippy. I don't want you diving on the ball and having 6 players jumping on you and maybe pulling a muscle or damaging your back or something like that. So we're just going to pull you. We'll reset and we'll go again next week. And that's what it should have been, in my opinion.
He would have had nothing to lose by pulling Daniel Jones. Nothing to lose. So, and not just pulling Dan Jones as well, but what about the rest of the sort of starters that you could have just, you've been out there for 45 minutes in the pissing rain. I'll give you a rest. So, yeah. Why it took so long for him to pull Jones, I don't know. All right, next up, let's talk Andrew Thomas then. So it was reported he was being evaluated for a possible hamstring injury after the blocked field goal. However, he was then put straight back in on the next series, which ended in the pick 6. And you can clearly see him struggling, especially after the interception. Yeah, so if you look on the video right here, you got Andrew Thomas on the right-hand side of the line as we're looking at. And now ball's been picked off. You can see him. There he is, hobbling, and he collapses just before the end zone. Why is he still on that field carrying that potential injury? He's gone off for, was it X-rays today or MRIs yesterday or whatever it was? Why is he still on the field? I mean, I know he's your best offensive lineman, and the game is still, it's early doors. It's what, 9-0 at this point. You've got to look after your premium players, and if he's not, if he's not on the field, he's not on the field. That is what it is. But I'd much rather him be on the field, resting that hamstring, and not doing any more damage than being out there and making the injury worse, right? So, some fans are calling they're calling out Daves on this one as well, saying it's malpractice keeping him out there, because it could have made the injury worse. What do you reckon, Shane? Should Thomas have been on the field in the first place?
See, this one I think is slightly tougher than the Daniel Jones one, because I don't know if the Giants have somebody that would have picked up Andrew Thomas moving like that at the time. And if that did Andrew Thomas turn around and say, yeah, my hamstring's gone, I don't know if I can carry on? Or did Andrew Thomas turn around and say, just felt a twinge, couldn't run properly, but, I'm moving it now, got the medical people checking it out, feels all good, I'm good to go. Now, if Andrew Thomas says he's good to go, why would you pull him out then? So, with that one, I'm not putting the blame on Dable because, like I say, if Andrew Thomas says one thing, well, if he says he's good to go, to me, he's good to go. At the end of the day, I'd expect Andrew Thomas to be professional enough that if he wasn't in a position to go and he felt he was putting Daniel Jones at risk and his teammates at risk of potentially losing a game, he would turn around and say, look, this ain't good to go. There's a problem here. Let me get down into the locker room and get it looked at properly. So, again, this is one that we'll never know, but we can only work with what we know and what we see. And I don't know if anybody on the Giants staff would have seen Andrew Thomas moving like that at that time, because I'd imagine at the time they're just dissecting what's gone wrong on the actual play and not going, oh, look at Andrew, he can hardly run there. So it's a tough one to put on Dable, in my opinion, on this one.
Yeah. Sorry, we just got a DM from Steve, who was on earlier, saying that apparently someone's tweeted, how dare Dable's daughter have a birthday? Give me a fucking break, media, some clowns. So, as Shane rightly said while we were talking about it, social media is social media, and you sometimes don't know the reasons until that. So, again, that's a social media post. We don't know if that's true, but that could be an answer for one thing, seeing as this is about Dable. But no, I agree with what you say, Shane. If Thomas has turned around and he's like, I'm good, like, yeah, I'm good. It felt tight at the time. I couldn't do anything. I fell down, but I'm good now. I'm ready to go. And from the flip side on that, if you're Brian Dable and you're like, shit, I've got to put Matt Pert in here and we know what Pert's been like, or, at what point do you go, he's saying he's good, I've got Matt Pert here, I'm not pushing that. Like, if he's saying he's good, he's good. And you look at the stats, Thomas still put up pretty decent stats considering he was injured. He was still easily the best defensive lineman who played them, looking at snap count. If you even that out, he's still the best defensive lineman with a dodgy hamstring. The problem is we've now got Thomas, who we're waiting on an MRI. Like we said, would you risk him against Arizona? Probably not. But Pert's injured as well. We've got to be looking at another tackle, because I think, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but Shane, Marcus McCathan would be the only other person, unless they decide to play Azudu out there and Glowinski somehow still makes the starters.
Yeah, so I think Azudu's got guard and tackle experience, but I think he predominantly played guard more than tackle, whereas I think McKethan predominantly played tackle, but does have some guard versatility. I mean, the other option you've got that we've not spoken about is, do you move Evan Neal to left tackle, to where he played at Bama?
True.
And that's actually a really good point. We retweeted something earlier from I think it was the Draft Network, who said that the Giants have a premium left tackle in Andrew Thomas, and Evan Neal, when he was drafted, was never going to upset him. He was always going to play on the right. But on the tape from college, Neal was always better at left tackle than he was at right tackle and had a higher grade. There was also people turning around and saying, look, do you move Evan Neal to a guard spot just to kind of help him out a little bit?
But you think back to what Justin said with us a couple of weeks ago, being asked to play on the right side when you've predominantly played on the left side is like asking you to start writing with your other hand that you've never written with. And it's a huge change to get used to.
I think what Justin actually said was try and wipe your ass with the other hand.
That was it. Try and wipe your ass with the other hand.
I see how well you do.
I couldn't remember exactly what it was he said, but I know that he obviously mentioned switching from one side of the line to the other and how difficult it is, and how people don't understand how difficult it is. And if Neal has played predominantly on the left side at Bama, and he's now expected to play on the right side, it's going to take him a little while to get used to it. And I mean, yeah, he's been there for a season. It's your rookie year. You expect him to be not great. Going into his second year, obviously he's had all this development through the off season, blah blah blah. And it's still going to be a relatively new position, so I can kind of understand why it's maybe taken him a bit longer to settle in. But
the only thing I'd say is Evan Neal has had full experience at every position apart from centre. I think he spent 4 years at Bama, and every 4 years. So in his last year at Bama, he played left tackle. The year before that, he played at right tackle. The year before that, he played at left guard. And I think the year before that, he played at right guard. So it's not like he's been asked to play right tackle. He's never done it before. He has had a full season. And I've just got it up now. So if we have a look in 2020, he had 23 snaps at left tackle, 765 at right. And then in his last year, 2021, that was when he switched. My apologies. So he had 1,000 tackles at left, 1,000 snaps at left tackle, and that was all he played.
So he does have plenty of experience then. But
yeah,
I think rest Andrew Thomas this week. We've got big games coming up after Arizona. We've got San Francisco, then we've got Seattle, and then Miami and Buffalo. So 4 big games over 4 weeks. So I think depending on what the results of the MRI are, I think it's definitely worth potentially sitting Thomas this week. But then, like I said, what other options have we got? Marcus McKethan, move Evan Neal over. We'll come on to that on the preview pod on Thursday. But
I mean, I suppose it kind of all stems from what we had. Obviously, we had news that Waller had an issue with his tight end on Friday. His tight end, his hamstring even.
I can't help but not laugh.
Yeah, I know. And the chatter was, do you play him or not? And it's a case of with a hamstring, if there's any questions there, you don't risk it. And I think that's the way it needs to go on Sunday with Andrew Thomas. Like you say, we'll come on to it later on in the week. But it all comes down to with a hamstring, it's a little bit ropey. So maybe just give it an extra week, especially on a short week for us.
I mean, I've pulled my hamstring before, and I couldn't walk properly for like 6 weeks. So how this guy's going to be expected to be on the field on Sunday after, I don't know, potentially either pulling it, there being a small tear, whatever's happened, we'll find out. But it's impressive. It's impressive that he was still on the field. So there we go. All right, let's wrap this up then. We've got some horrific stats and records that have been broken. In NFL history, that's the entire history of the National Football League. No team has ever lost a game 40-0 or worse, lost the sack battle 7-0 or worse, lost the turnover battle 3-0 or worse, had a blocked field goal, returned for a touchdown, and thrown a pick six in the same season. That's 16/17 games season. The 2023 New York Football Giants accomplished this in one game against Dallas. One fucking game. Congratulations on breaking that record. Congratulations on setting that record. Because, I mean, all I'm going to say is what the Feagles. Because that's awful.
Yeah, that's the biggest one, isn't it?
Shocking. And when we were on the way home from Birmingham yesterday and you read that stat out to me, I was almost in disbelief when you said that to me. And I thought, that says it all. That wraps up the weekend. That nice little bow that's on top. That is it. No team will probably ever do that again in a single game. Or for a long, long time. So, yeah, well done. The New York Giants set that record on Sunday. So, we've got something to be proud of this season, lads. We've got something to be proud of. One game that we accomplished that in. One fucking game. And that is our biggest What the Feagles moment of the weekend. And now, unfortunately, or fortunately, shall I say, for our sanity, that is all we've got time for tonight. But we will be back live on Thursday evening at 8:30 to try to look ahead to our Week 2 game on the road in the desert as we take on the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday evening. So looking forward to getting back on Thursday and looking forward to that game. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
Just hopefully, we can put Sunday night behind us now. Like we've said earlier on, it's week 1 of the season. I did see a crazy stat earlier on saying that the Patriots in one of their Super Bowl winning seasons lost their opener 31-3 so many years ago, and the Lions did something and still went on to the conference championship. So, it's not a case of one and done. There's still plenty of football to be left. Hopefully, we're going to learn from it. Hopefully, Dable learns from it. Let's not forget this. Brian Dable, it's only his second year as a head coach. He's going to make some mistakes, whether it's leaving a quarterback in longer than maybe he needs to. But, I'm sure he'll kind of learn from it. Hopefully some of the stuff comes out in a little bit more detail than what we spoke about, obviously, about the party Saturday night. The initial one, Craig said, I took that as it was a party with the players, etc. If it's his daughter's party, there's a difference between a kid's party and adult's party. So, hopefully some of that will get clarified and, confirmed. And like I say, put the weekend behind us. Let's look towards Arizona. Let's look at going 1-1.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that's over. And as much as it sucked and as annoying as this whole thing has been, I think the one thing to remember is you look at all the pundits, beat writers, content creators, and even us, it's one game. And it was the kickoff game. And it was a complete anomaly. And as you said, it would never happen again. All those stats, they just won't happen. It won't happen again.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, it's a bad day. We all have them. It was not ideal being in a casino at 4 a.m. watching it, tired, just ready to go to bed. But we go again. And you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Who says that another team can't have a bad game against us this season? Anything can happen in this crazy, crazy game that we support, and that's why we love it. And we'll forget about this, move on. We'll do a Bill Belichick. We're on to Arizona, and that's how it goes. And who knows? We might not even be talking about this at the end of the season.
I mean, I hope to God we're not talking about it at the end of the season.
I mean,
I
I hope we lived in the Super Bowl up going, oh, do you remember when we was worried after we lost 40-0 against Dallas?
Yeah, true that. Very true. But no, it's you're right. It is one game. We've got the reigning, defending coach of the year in Brian Dable. We've got absolutely astounding general manager in Joe Shane. We've got some fantastic coaches that they work with. We've got some fantastic players on our roster. There was rightly a lot of optimism and a lot of hope and expectation going into the season because how much we on paper has strengthened our roster. And for whatever reason on Sunday night, it just did not go the way we thought it would. It didn't go to plan. It capitulated in only a way that the New York Giants can capitulate a game. But it's week 1. We move on to week 2. That the league keeps on moving. It keeps going. It keeps on rolling. It doesn't stop. And the Giants can't look back on it. They can't dwell on it. They can't go, oh, what if? No. It's Tuesday night. It's Tuesday evening. We should be looking forward to Arizona already. And we are very much looking forward to Arizona already. And you forget as well, the guy that just signed a $55 million a year contract in Joe Burrow had an absolute shocker against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. His stat line was, I can't remember his stat line off the top of my head, but it was absolutely awful.
It was 14 for 31, 82 yards.
Exactly. The guy that's touted by many to be playing in the Super Bowl at the end of the season, to potentially be MVP of the league this season, goes out week 1 and has an absolute stinker. So it's not all lost. It's far from all lost.
And let's
It's
not
1
forget,
week of the season.
and just for like some comparison, I know it was only there was 1 point in the game, but the defending champions lost as well week 1.
Yep.
It doesn't. I think Kev said in our group chat, it doesn't matter whether you lose by 1 score or 4 or 5, you're still 0-1 regardless. And I was going to mention it, the Bengals, like you've just said, they lost, and did anyone see that result? Maybe it being close, but no one's seen them 24-3 loss, and most people see a KC loss on Thursday night. So it can happen at the end of the day. It's football.
Exactly. It is football. But it's a sport that we all love and all follow and will continue to follow. And just because of this one game, we still bleed blue. We're still going to follow the New York Giants, until the day we die. It's just one game. So we move on. But as we said at the beginning, it's okay to talk. It's good to talk. And, it's good to get it out. And it's been in a way, it has been quite therapeutic to get it out. So, it's been a good evening. But we move on. Week 2, looking forward to week 2, looking forward to the Cardinals game, and looking forward to chatting about that on Thursday evening as well, lads. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell to get the latest updates and notifications. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and now also on TikTok as well. Search for Big Blue UK and Ireland, and you can get in touch with us via any of those social networks or email as well, bigblueukirl@gmail.com. We are also part of the Full 10 Yards network. Check out the site full10yards.co.uk/Giants. And we are all part of the New York Giants Fans UK as well, so give them a follow. They're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram and Threads as well. Lastly, check out usasports.co.uk for all your American sports merch and get 15% off. Is it now, Craig? It was 20%, but it's now 15%.
20% ended yesterday, unfortunately, but we still have 15%, and that runs for the entire season. And there could even be fluctuation to that throughout the season. So,
apologies for the error at the start, but it's now back to 15%. But that's, like you said, that's throughout the whole season. So enter the code Big Blue and get your American sports merch from there. They also do plenty of other merch as well. They do English football teams, they do F1, they do all different American sports, hockey, baseball, basketball, NCAA sports as well. So for all your American sports merch, head on over there. And also check out our Etsy store as well, etsy.com/Big Blue UK IRL, to get yourself some podcast merch. Show us some love, show us some support. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate everyone that has bought some of that merchandise so far. We're loving seeing the pictures on Twitter of you getting your podcast mugs and t-shirts through the post. Use them and be proud to use them, because it's a joy and a pleasure to do this every week, and it's really cool to see spreading the love and sharing the love out there in the world. So if you want to get your hands on some merch, feel free, head on over to our Etsy store. My thanks, as ever, do go to you, Shane, and to Craig for joining me. As painful as it has been this week, it's still a pleasure. And to you, the viewers and listeners, for joining me. We're signing off until next time.